Hey guys, Max92, welcome back to another tryout. Today's tryout is on WonderBoy, the Dragon's Trap. Now this is a game that I got through the Prime Gaming thing that exists, where you can get free games, and so I have it through the Amazon launcher thing. And so that's where I played it on PC. I played it with a controller. I was initially going to use the sort of Genesis controllers that comes with the Genesis Mini, but it in fact has one too few buttons to play the game. So I ended up playing it with this mini controller thing that I have that I use for 2D platformer type games a lot of the time. So WonderBoy the Dragon's Trap is a remake of a 1989 Master System game. It's a fan remake made by people who are fans of the game. It's like professionals who are fans of the project have made a new thing. Though this is not a new thing, this is in fact just a remake. This is a cool remake with how the visual style has been updated to be like this storybook-esque art. It's really pleasantly animated and fun to look at. I enjoy it, and even though this is here and the updated music is here, there are options for you to toggle back to the original sound design and the original visuals if that's how you wanted to play it. You have that option, which is really cool. It's one of the reasons I particularly liked the Halo remakes, Combat Evolved Anniversary and 2 Anniversary, how you can switch back and forth between the two visual styles, the original and the updated. And it also applies to the cutscenes in this one, so it's a really cool situation. I like that a lot. And I think I forgot to mention that it's toggleable on the fly as well. You can just press a button if you have a button mapped. On this little controller, I didn't have quite enough buttons to do one for the visuals and one for the audio, but you have the option to swap between both the visuals and the audio separately. So you can have a button map for swapping between the old and new visuals and have a separate button map for swapping between the old and new music. As for how it is as a game itself, it's a pretty simple, fun action platformer. And it's got some unique elements to it with how each time you beat a boss, you're sort of transformed into a new creature, and that creature has different abilities. So when you defeat the first boss, you get transformed into a dragon, lizard man, I think is what the Wikipedia page called it. You can shoot fire, and that has a certain set of abilities. It has a ranged attack. And then I beat another boss inside of a pyramid or something, and I got turned into a little mouse guy. And so now I'm a little mouse guy, and so it's pretty cool. One of the things I forgot to mention that is also new with the updated visual styles is there's an option to play as Wonder Boy or Wonder Girl. So you have this little bit of option with the two different characters and their designs. I don't know how much it changes between the two, but it's always fun to give options for players to sort of express themselves in games like that. It, I think, can help people connect more to games to have a way to represent themselves in a certain way. So that's always cool. I don't really have that much to say over the course of I played about an hour. I think my save says an hour 16 minutes maybe. I'll have footage I can show that. And so that's about how long I played, just to get a feel for the game, and it doesn't feel bad. There's some weirdness to some of it, where how when you take damage and you're in an invincibility state, you sort of get knocked around a little bit. You don't take damage, but you get knocked around a little bit, which is different than things that I'm used to in other platformers where you'd sort of just phase through the enemy if you took damage, essentially. But that's not the case in this game. You get pushed around, so you don't get phased through the enemies. But that's not really a negative necessarily. It's just sort of different. I do have a couple negatives. They're not the biggest thing. The first thing is that when I was using these controllers, at first I didn't think this controller was working at all, but you have to go in and map the buttons first. So you have mouse and keyboard, playing on PC, obviously. You have to use mouse and keyboard to get to the options menu, and then map the buttons for these third-party controllers. I don't know what it is if you were to plug in just an Xbox controller, if that would automatically have the correct button prompts. But for these two controllers, I had to go into the settings and map what the buttons were to the controller, to the gamepads. But hey, there are mappable buttons. That's always great to have. It's just weird that it doesn't like automatically have a default set so that you don't feel like, is my controller not working? That was a bit weird. And then the other thing that I have that's sort of a negative is that you can kind of tell that this is an older game that's been fixed up a little bit. Like, it looks really nice. It looks like a modern game, but in terms of how it plays and its stuff, you can just tell that it's a game from like 1989. It has that sort of like vibe to it. You know how like older games, like late NES games and stuff like that, have a certain vibe to them? You can sort of feel it here. It's like, yeah, this is an old game. And one of the things I think most exemplifies that is how little direction you're given, to where it can feel like, okay, where am I supposed to be going? Where is there even to go at this point? But like, as long as you're willing to explore a little bit, you'll find where you're supposed to go or where you can go and figure things out. It's not difficult to figure out. It's just sort of a little more direction could be useful in a game like this. Though this game is, again, it's old, so it's not like gonna have that in it. Just in terms of if you're going to make this style of game as a modern developer, I'd say a little more direction to be like, hey, you want to go here. You don't necessarily have to handhold the player the way there, but giving them an idea of like where the next thing is can be helpful in making it so there's not these down times where the player is just searching. Which, again, isn't necessarily bad if the sort of thing you want players to do in your game is explore. But in this case, I think it's a bit more of a straightforward kind of game, to where you might want to have a little more like, hey, you want to go to this place, and you don't necessarily have to handhold like quest markers or anything. Just be like, hey, go west, and it's like, okay, I need to go this way. That's basically it. But it's not a bad game. I think it's pretty interesting, especially with the art style of this remake. It's very pleasant to look at, and I like it quite a bit visually. And playing it took me a bit to like figure out all the stuff here and there, but I pretty quickly figured it out over the hour. Like, okay, how to time my attacks and stuff like that. Like, I figured it out pretty swiftly in terms of things. It's not that confusing. It's pretty self-explanatory kind of game. So, yeah. If you can't tell, it's Game Pass's tryout. I probably will play more. That's sort of my plan. I want to see where it goes, and if I run into any roadblocks where I'm like, I don't know if I get past this. But so far, I've not really run into any roadblocks where I'm like, I don't know how to get past this, and then not had anywhere else to go. In the second area, I had like 2 directions I could go. So I sort of went one way. It's like, I can't get any farther this way, and then I went back the other way. So there's stuff to do, places to go, and I want to play it and see what happens. And that's it. That's all I got to say about it. So let's move on to the end bits here. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you dislike the video, hit the dislike button. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing on this channel, you can hit the subscribe button. I do this show. I do other shows. Subscribe and you'll get notified for those. Go down in the description, find links to all sorts of places: Twitter, Patreon, Bandcamp, Redbubble, etc. Go down to those links, do what you do in those places. Leave a comment. Have you played any of the WonderBoy games? I know there's quite a few of them. WonderBoy The Dragon's Trap is actually the 3rd WonderBoy game. Have you played any other ones? Let me know down in the comments what you think about those. Share the video. Do the things. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!